I want to ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to stop playing politics with justice. Not a single one of you voted for your own party to be held in contempt. I'm the only member of this body, of this committee, that has held both Republicans and Democrats alike in contempt for defying a congressional subpoena. So the hypocrisy is real, and I don't want to hear anyone on the other side of the aisle say no one is above the law here on this.
This may look like another heated exchange on Capitol Hill, but it's actually a stress test for institutional integrity. What's really being tested here is whether oversight applies evenly, or only when it's politically convenient. This raises broader questions about how power enforces accountability inside Congress itself. In this video, we'll break down how selective enforcement erodes trust, why equal standards matter to democratic legitimacy, and what today's exchange reveals about the oversight system under pressure.
Who's next? Ms. Luna. Go ahead, Ms. Luna. Then
Thank
Ms.
you,
Mace.
Chairman. I'd just like to remind the American people that I was the member that made the motion to hold Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress, and every Democrat voted against it. And in addition to that, 3 of my Republican colleagues voted against it, one of which did not come back because his voters decided that he was too swampy for them. So
Okay.
I'd just like to point that out. But aside from that,
Well, Ms. Luna, it's been pointed out to me you've already had 5 minutes. Somebody will probably yield you some time.
Well,
I've got to.
if I could just finish real quick. If we're looking to see why the files have not been released yet, look no further than the judge, Engelmeyer,
I'm sorry,
who's
Ms.
actually been
Luna.
responsible
I'm sorry.
for
If
denying
someone can
Rokan
yield
and
you some
Massey's
time.
special counsel. I'm just saying, I'm making a point.
All right.
So this is all political.
So we haven't
games here.
recognized the Republican on this. Ms. Mace, do you want to be recognized?
That would be great, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of documents I would like to enter into the record this morning with unanimous consent. First of all, I want to ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to stop playing politics with justice. Not a single one of you voted for your own party to be held in contempt. I'm the only member of this body, of this committee, that has held both Republicans and Democrats alike in contempt for defying a congressional subpoena. So the hypocrisy is real, and I don't want to hear anyone on the other side of the aisle say no one is above the law here on this. We're talking about human trafficking, sex trafficking. We're talking about children, girls as young as 14 being assaulted, being trafficked by wealthy and powerful people. This is not political. This is personal. This should be nonpartisan. We should be working on this together. And it's incredible that we're politicizing rape, we're politicizing sex trafficking, we're politicizing this entire Epstein thing. And it just, as a survivor, I'm telling you, it should not be. And I've done a lot of work, Mr. Chairman, in advocacy and writing legislation for victims of abuse, male, female, and children, man, woman, and child. South Carolina, my home state, Mr. Chairman, has a huge problem with all sorts of violent crimes, but sex trafficking in my state is up by over 400%. We have domestic violence in our state where you can't get a trial. And there was a case last year where a woman 2 years ago was kidnapped by her boyfriend, beaten to a pulp, her face just beaten in. 2 years after he kidnapped her and beat her, he murdered her on Mother's Day because our local solicitor refused to prosecute that case. And I have rogue solicitors and prosecutors and attorneys general who aren't doing anything to protect the people of South Carolina, women and children especially. Recently, my attorney general prosecuted a case against convicted pedophile Donald Gresh. Donald Gresh was convicted of having 1,900 images of toddlers as young as 3 being raped by animals. Donald Gresh, under the prosecution of my attorney general Alan Wilson, served 1 day in jail. 1 day. Donald Gresh isn't the only pedophile, convicted pedophile, that we prosecute like that. My attorney general Alan Wilson prosecuted this case. This is Travis Reed Gay. Well, the other thing, too, is that Donald Gresh, he was facing 60 years in jail, got 1 day. Travis Reed Gay was facing 70 years, 7 charges and 70 years in jail in South Carolina. My attorney general prosecuted this case. He pled guilty in November, didn't serve any time. He got probation. He violated his probation 11 days later. And if he violated his probation, he was to serve time in jail. The magistrate or judge, probably didn't have a law degree, let him out hours later. He has not served any required time for this kind of thing. And I did a press conference with a bunch of moms, over a dozen moms last week in Charleston, South Carolina, and there was a local media blackout. I asked, was it my attorney general who prosecuted this case and led this pedophile out on the streets? Was he the one that led the media blackout? Well, I want my attorney general in my state to know that a young child came forward after seeing my press conference and recognized this man. She filed a police report the same day because he allegedly followed her in a park the week before. This is Scott Spivey. Killed, shot with a bullet in the back, shot at 17 times, not prosecuted by my attorney general. So I'm going to ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to enter those 3 images into the record. This is Weldon Boyd. This is Scott Spivey's killer who shot him in the back and has never really been investigated or prosecuted for that killing. in South Carolina. I would like to enter that into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
This is Logan Federico. She was executed a year ago, yesterday to the day, by a man named Alexander Dickey. Alexander Dickey was a convicted criminal. He had 39 arrests, 25 felony charges. He executed this beautiful 22-year-old daughter of Stephen Federico in cold blood after stealing a gun. If her killer, Alexander Dickey, hadn't been let out by a rogue magistrate or judge or a prosecutor solicitor that didn't care, she would be alive today. Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter her image and her killer's image into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
I have another image. This is Eric Bowman. Eric Bowman beat his wife and has been alleged and is being investigated for other abuses against women and potentially underage girls. He was just let out free, Mr. Chairman, out of jail in South Carolina. He is a predator. I have reported him to law enforcement. He's under investigation, but I have written bill after bill about predators like Eric Bowman, about voyeurism, about these sort of criminal sexual allegations. I would like to enter his image into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
I have two more.
Can we get it? Your time's expired, but I'll recognize you for a UC later on, because I want to make sure everybody stays within their 5 minutes. Chair recognizes Mr. Bell from Missouri.
First and foremost,
What just happened in that hearing was not a procedural footnote. It was a rupture. A moment where the polite language of Capitol Hill cracked and something far more uncomfortable spilled into the open. When Nancy Mace looked across the dais and said plainly that the hypocrisy was real, that justice was being bent to serve party interests, she wasn't delivering a soundbite. She was describing a system in conflict with itself. This was supposed to be a discussion about accountability, about whether defying Congress carries consequences, about whether the phrase "no one is above the law" still has meaning when applied evenly, not selectively. Instead, what unfolded was a reminder of how quickly principle disappears when power is at stake. Votes were cast not on consistency, not on standards, but on allegiance. And everyone in that room knew it. Mace's point was simple, and that's what made it so unsettling. Contempt is not supposed to be a partisan weapon. It is a constitutional tool. It exists to protect oversight, to ensure that the legislative branch is not ignored or dismissed by those who serve under it. Yet, when the moment came to apply that tool evenly, the resolve vanished. Party lines hardened, excuses followed, and accountability became optional, depending on who stood accused. What does that tell us about governance in America today? It tells us that justice is increasingly filtered through politics before it ever reaches principle. That outrage is conditional. That standards shift depending on who benefits. When lawmakers insist that the law must be respected, but only when it inconveniences the other side, the law itself becomes hollow. This hearing also exposed something deeper, a growing disconnect between rhetoric and responsibility. Members speak passionately about safety, about dignity, about protecting the vulnerable. But passion without consistency is theater. And theater does not protect anyone. It only creates the illusion of action, while real consequences are endlessly deferred. Mace did something rare in that moment. She refused to stay within the comfortable script. She reminded the room that accountability is not meaningful if it is selective. That credibility is not something you can switch on and off depending on the headline of the day. And that when institutions fail to act with integrity, the damage doesn't stay inside hearing rooms. It ripples outward, eroding trust far beyond Washington. This wasn't just a critique of one vote or one decision. It was an indictment of a culture where process is weaponized, where moral language is used as cover, and where difficult truths are dismissed as inconvenient. A culture where the appearance of justice is often valued more than justice itself. And here is the most sobering part. This is not abstract. When oversight collapses into partisanship, when enforcement becomes optional, the consequences are real. They are felt in communities that expect institutions to function. They are felt by citizens who still believe that the rules apply equally. They are felt every time accountability is delayed, diluted, or denied. The American system was designed around checks and balances for a reason. Not because leaders are always virtuous, but because power without restraint inevitably drifts. Oversight is not an attack. It is a safeguard. And when lawmakers refuse to use it consistently, they are not protecting democracy. They are weakening it. What we saw in that hearing was a mirror, not just reflecting one party or one committee, but reflecting the broader state of our politics. A system where moral certainty is loud, but moral courage is scarce. Where words are abundant, but consequences are negotiable. Moments like this force a question that cannot be avoided forever. Do we still believe that institutions should be bound by the same rules they enforce? Or have we quietly accepted a two-tier standard, one for those with power and one for everyone else? History doesn't remember press releases. It remembers whether leaders acted when it mattered, whether they upheld standards when it was inconvenient, whether they chose principle over protection. The hearing is over, the cameras have moved on, but the moment remains. Because it revealed something fundamental about where we are and what is at stake if accountability continues to be treated as a partisan option rather than a democratic obligation. If you believe that oversight should mean something, if you believe that justice cannot survive selective enforcement, if you believe that hypocrisy, once exposed, should not be ignored, then this conversation doesn't end here. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA, support our work, and stay with us as we continue to expose the truth behind the politics.